One of the things this illustration is from that story I did for Motor One, and one of the stats that kind of blew me away when I wrote it down because it seemed like it wasn't right. Mercedes-Benz's Drive Pilot, the level 3 system, generates 34 gigabytes of data per minute when it's in operation.
What?
Estimates have basically said that 4,000 gig a day is a pretty good idea of how much data a self-driving car will generate. And of course, like, getting through that amount of data is just incredibly challenging. And this is kind of where you start seeing like a lot of AI people start to slide in, like, oh, we can just, get rid of all of this extra data and we just can we can figure things out, sort of based off of machine learning or whatever. And I'm not a big proponent of that. So it still leaves you with the requirement of, I have to get through 34 gigs of data a minute at like literally blink of the eye reflexes constantly. And that's to drive a car 35 miles an hour in a traffic jam in sunlight.
Yeah. It feels like a very good use of the extremely limited battery power that cars will have. Yeah.
No, if every car on Earth were self-driving, it would use 4 orders of magnitude more computing power than all of Facebook's data centers put together.
Incredible.
It would require more electricity than Argentina. The country.
Yeah.
So it's computationally and power wise, you kind of run into some constraints.
Yeah, and we'll get there. We will get there because boy. So then we get so like in our story of hype versus reality, we get to we see Waymo, and here we've got the Zeekr version of Waymo's kind of tech. This is their latest, I think, right, or possibly even
Gen
imminent.
6 I'm just double checking.
Yeah, I think this is the Gen 6.
Yeah.
So I suppose
it's a Geely. I always forget how to pronounce it. It's a Chinese automaker.
Oh yeah, okay, yeah. And so this is where so we know what level 2 is. I guess level 1 is just lane assist, is it? Stuff like that?
Level 0 is like automatic emergency braking. The car intervenes to maybe help you avoid a car accident, but it's not actually doing anything. Level 1 is lane centering or adaptive cruise. And then level 2 is lane centering and adaptive cruise. So the car is like actively handling both steering and brake. That's all level 2 is. And like that's, how... Yeah, there's the chart for it. And so like every system that you've interacted with, most likely, unless you're a very rare person who owns a 7 Series in California and like or a S-Class and opted into like Drive Pilot or something, you've driven a level 2 car. There is no level 2 plus according to SAE. Level 2 plus is just like, hey, you can remove your hands because I'm really good at doing lane centering and braking, but that's it. That's all the car is actually promising you it can do, and the legal burden is still on the driver. Level 3 is, SAE puts as a traffic jam chauffeur, which is what Drive Pilot is.
Yep.
And then level 4 is Waymo. Level 4 is what Cruise was trying to attain, which was the car can drive itself in limited situations. Waymo just started driving on freeways in LA. So, for the longest time, they wouldn't even go on highways because they didn't want to be in like high speed situations. Yeah, they were mostly like surface street operation. And, they've reached a point now where I think the new Zeekrs may not have wheels in them, but they had safety chauffeurs, as I referred to earlier, for quite a while.
Yeah, so they have the wheel, but it's in the global south. Like, essentially.
Well, and that was Cruise's. Waymo's actually had the person sitting in the driver's seat. Uber also had an interesting case of this. It was, I think, 2018. Uber had somebody in the car physically with it who was supposed to be monitoring the car, and there was a case where the car hit and killed somebody. And the driver didn't see them because they were kind of like not paying close attention because the car was supposedly self-driving. That person actually got charged with negligent homicide.
Oh my goodness! Right,
Uber. I don't think anything happened to them.
Catch this moment, which is like this moment to just say, one of the inherent behavioral things here, as like from a railway perspective and a safety perspective, I've designed safe systems to work, and ergonomics is a really important way to think about safe systems of work. And a way, the reason why a lot of this stuff is a real problem and really raises a lot of safety red flags for me is having someone have to suddenly instantly get situational awareness, whether you're the driver, whether you're the owner, it's your own vehicle and you've had some form of you've had level 3 activated, or you've had level 2 activated for a bit and you're suddenly expected to be to be tuning in, whatever it is, like to suddenly go, oh, I need to suddenly have situational awareness is not it's not a good way to have a safety response when seconds, you've got seconds at play before something bad
No.
happens.
No, and this was this was 2019 was when the case actually reached the courts, and in the level 3 case with Uber, they were like the person who's supposed to be handling this, who was I think the driver was on their phone, it was their fault. Uber's not at fault, and so that's still kind of like well, this is supposed to be level 3. The car is supposed to be handling
Yeah,
things. And it's like
absolutely.
no, actually.
Yeah, and then obviously you throw the worker under the bus in that situation, and it's not great. So
Yeah, and that's and your unpaid gig driver basically.
yeah, exactly. And so that coming back to the Waymo, I suppose that's so the Waymo, the Gen 6, as it were, the Generation 6 is it has a remote operator now. So it's not the original Waymo where you've got the driver that's a remote operator who obviously they always talk down the remote operator. They never give any data about how many times remote operators are stepping in. They don't give they're very they often just don't mention the fact there is an external driver at all in any of their press stuff. I don't know to what extent.
So what Waymo does is they have, in at least the iPaces, so that was the Gen 5 car. They had somebody that they called. I've got their site up because I want to get the wording correct. They called it fleet response, which was the car encounters a situation it is scared of, and it basically dials into somebody and says, "Help me get through this."
Yeah.
And so they weren't actually remotely handling control of the car over to somebody. The person was basically like training the computer on board how to get through a scenario that was difficult. I don't know what they're doing with the Gen 6 ones because these just came out.
Yeah. It's the thing is
yeah,
there was always
they refused to drive remotely fully because there was no way to get the network connection good
Oh, really?
enough to do so.
Okay, yeah.
That was the thing with Waymo, is they were like, absolutely not. Yes.
Because we cannot rely on the signal to not. Yeah, that's an interesting point. Okay, so in which case, so having gone through the practicalities of, I suppose, did we answer the question? Will they ever exist? I suppose with the Waymo picture up, do you think we're going to be in a situation where we actually have cars that are?
You can take what is a theoretically driverless taxi ride in certain cities in the US that are notably very sunny, and on specific streets they'll avoid routing that they consider to be too challenging. But I mean, yes, there isn't a person there. Now, is there any reason to do this beyond the hope that the tech progresses further? Absolutely not, because they are dumping billions of dollars into this tech and they are not anywhere near profitable.
Yeah.
So, and that's the other thing too, is that I don't know what it is for the Gen 6 cars, but about 4 years ago, the CEO of Waymo said they were spending about $180,000 per car. And this is when they had the Pacificas, which were like the previous gen, and the iPaces. And so that's like all of your sensors, and that's the car itself, but that's still a ton of money. That you're really, one of the things that Uber had figured out is that by sort of making taxi driving a gig economy thing, they didn't have to worry about paying their drivers living wages, obviously, but they also didn't have to worry about maintaining a fleet of cars, which you still have to do with, like, the cars still depreciate, they still have to be maintained. They still need to, like, they're still going to accumulate wear and tear as
and they're now full of
clamber in and out.
Yeah, they're now full of tech which is instantly obsolete.
Well, yeah, I mean, and that's the thing with Waymo, is that, like, you can tell that their cars, because they've invested heavily in, like, a combination of sensors, which is, I think, the correct way to pursue this. There's a lot of money kind of sitting glued to those cars, and they're not really useful as a ton else once you've done that.